Get ready to uncover how schools manipulate students' thoughts, stifle their potential, and how politicians steal money in the future of America from kids. Welcome to the JB Sills Show.
Hello. You are watching the Operation Anti-Indoctrination podcast. My name is JB Sills, and I'm here with producer Brooke.
Hello.
We're having a great day. It's actually very late into the night, and I would say very, I mean like 10 when we're recording this. I've been a very naughty boy and not done my research until right now, but I'm all ready to go. We're all ready to go. We got an excellent show for you today. Gonna be talking about lots of current events with the school system. Then we're going, as we always do, to be going into some history, which I think you will find very, very interesting. So, oh boys, it's been another crazy week. Another crazy, nuts week where I cannot possibly cover all the educational news. But what I will not be talking about is the DNC convention, because that's what literally everybody else is talking about, and nobody cares. Boring. Plus, I mean, what on earth do I have to that? I think everything that could possibly be said about it has been said. Producer Brooke has no idea what I'm talking about.
I do not know what you're talking about. I don't follow politics.
She does not follow the news, and honestly, I do not suggest it. It's not a very good life. It's not a lot of fun. But you do get to hear about education, so this should be interesting.
Fun.
Alright, so the first story, this is a real beauty. This is absolutely grotesque here, but we have a school assignment in Texas, of all places, which compares police officers to slave owners and KKK members. Isn't that lovely?
Amazing.
Yeah, this is grotesque and truly it's really disturbing, if I'm being honest right now, to compare police officers, modern day police officers, to slave owners and KKK members. And we have a little political cartoon right here, which is really truly disturbing and disgraceful. But you have a slave trader from, I guess, the 16th or 17th century. Then you have a slave owner from like the 1800s or 1700s. Then a KKK member. Then a, I guess, segregationist police officer, and then a modern day police officer. So that's lovely. And they're all basically torturing black people. So that's lovely. That's a real beauty right there. Really, really trying to unite the country schools. As always, good job.
Amazing.
Good job, guys. Really nice, really nice.
Just bringing us all together.
As a nation. We're the United States of America. We're all so united, so patriotic, so proud of our nation. Good job, schools. You're fantastic. Of course, this is what happens when you have a system which, as we know, is built off a horrible, horrible idea of utopianism, built by horrible, satanic people, built by totalitarians. You know, this is school. This is what happens. This is what happens when you let this system, when you turn over a system with no accountability and you let them educate the young. Anyway, that's a real beauty. But anyway, all right. This story's a little better. Not gonna lie. Now that that's out of the way, now we can move past that a little bit. We have. Out in the People's Republic of Michigan, you know, with Queen Gretchen or whatever her name is, we have a bunch of Catholic schools which are reopening right over there, which I am a little surprised that they're allowed to do, considering Michigan right now, but apparently they are, so that's nice. And what we have is Catholic schools, which these horrible, evil places of old, austerity, which are filling up, which are waiting lists now. There's quite the waiting list now to get into some of these schools. There was a story that was run where it talked about two in particular. It talked about the Notre Dame Preparatory School and the Divine Child Catholic School, and these schools were filled up. They were filling up because people wanted their kids to go back to school. It's funny how that works, and all the better, because honestly, look, it would be really stupid of me to say that Catholic schools don't indoctrinate. I mean, that's kind of the whole idea. But I'm not Catholic, but I'd rather get Catholic indoctrination, honestly, than the public school indoctrination. I would much prefer that. So that's a little something I thought was quite interesting, where you have parents that really want their kids to get what they think is an education. And obviously the Catholic schools do a much better job on basic things like literacy and reading and math. So there's that, and they are almost by default better, actually, because with public schools the state gives the parents the authority, whereas when you go to a private school, no matter what it is, the authority comes from the parents, which is going to foster a little more trust than the government. The government's just not that good at that kind of thing.
Government's not good at much.
No, they're really not. I mean, there is a role for government, but they're really not good at it a whole lot. Just not efficient. There's no such thing as an efficient bureaucracy, which is part of the reason why public school is, first of all, so terrible, so inefficient, and secondly, so susceptible to influence from bad, morally depraved people, which is why we have where we are today. All right, I'm not gonna lie, this one gave me a little chuckle, but I think we found possibly, there've been a lot of really, really dumb guidelines for reopening schools. A while ago we talked about the CDC's guidelines, which included things like each person's individual belongings being separated. So my folder's got to be separate from my binder, not my friend's binder, but my binder. That's quite dumb. And then little, playing with the hallways and wacky social distancing measures. But anyway, we have a new wonderful guideline for schools in this unspecified district, which could possibly be, I know this is a high bar, but the dumbest guideline or procedure yet. Take a look at this. I hope we'll be able to get this on the screen nicely, because we'll see how this goes.
All right, got a little e-learning going on here today with Christopher Hammer. All right, Christopher, a lot of people feel like e-learning, it's kind of silly. The programs aren't as good as going to actual school. Please tell me what you're doing this morning.
Today we have a virtual fire drill where they are showing us where to walk out of the building that we are not in right now in case that building catches fire.
So let me make sure that I've got this perfectly straight here. So I want to make sure everybody's on the up and up. This is a virtual fire drill.
Yes.
So in case the building that you're not in catches on fire, you here at home will know exactly what to do.
Yes.
Turn around. Let me see that again. Just virtual fire drill, ladies and gentlemen.
A virtual fire drill. You know what? Why not? Why not? Oh my goodness. A virtual fire drill. How about that? How about that? Why not?
It's too good. It's too good.
I had to include this in here because, that's something else. I mean, you talk about some of these things where it's, it's like, okay, this could possibly maybe help somehow, but stuff like this, and I mean, this is probably not an isolated incident. There's probably plenty of stuff, and not exactly like that, but plenty of stuff in the same realm going on right now because school is just that stupid a lot of times.
This is what the professionals might call a waste of time.
Yeah. So, school, it's it's the gift that keeps giving, with stuff like this. But this is, I in my opinion, my humble opinion, this is just the result of what people never talk about. People love laughing at the school system and talking about how it indoctrinates, but they're never able to connect the dots. And that in itself is a product of the school system, because in school you learn the dots, but you don't learn how to connect them. And when you learn how to connect them, that's where the elites start having problems, and that's the case with the school system. But anyway, moving on from that gem, we have a nationwide uprising from the teachers. You have teachers all over the country calling in sick. You also have, by the way, the second largest teachers union in the United States, the American Federation of Teachers, an evil union, but we'll skip past their history for today. You have them calling for a nationwide boycott by teachers of school, where they're going to call in sick, they're going to protest, they're going to, they're gonna do everything because these unions. I mean, they're very entitled. They act like entitled brats a lot of times. But in this case, you know what? I support them because I do not want the schools to open. I do not want the schools giving their brainwashing, giving their indoctrination, giving their Machiavellian techniques to the kids. I do not like it. So, right now we have mass resignations in districts inside of Virginia. States like Arizona, Utah, Indiana, Texas, and Minnesota were the ones I saw the most. But you have teachers that are refusing to go to work, calling in sick, whatever, because they will not go back because they fear COVID, they fear dying, and they've done some really, really sensationalistic stuff where they've, carried fake coffins of where teachers would theoretically be when they go back to work. They've done some very sensationalistic, very hyperbolic stuff, very fear-mongering of sorts, but honestly, I support them. I am at the point I wasn't into at first, but the more I learn, the more I read, by the way. All my positions on the public school system I've gotten from reading. Not reading articles, not browsing obscure conspiracy theory websites. I've gotten them from reading books by credible authors. So that's why I do not really want the schools to open at this point. I want to starve the system. Yep, I'm saying it because the system does a whole lot more harm than good. Whatever limited benefits it has, the dumbing down, the controlling of society far outweigh, in my opinion. So what we have is our teachers boycotting the school system. And the unions are supporting them. They are encouraging it. They are probably sponsoring it, to be honest. They are, they're all in because they put themselves above their agenda. And their agenda is mass control, but I guess they put themselves above that. They're a little more selfish than you would probably think. So I thought that was interesting because these teachers, they're not happy with it, and I think that most of them are a little bit entitled to the kind of entitled brats. There was the one story where the teachers wanted more pay because they would have to upgrade their Wi-Fi for virtual learning. A little ridiculous there, especially when you consider the gas they'll be saving, for instance. But you have these teachers that are entitled because the profession does not necessarily attract talented people. The profession attracts people who don't have the skills to do a whole lot else in general. Now, a lot of times you do have good teachers, or at least well-meaning ones, but in most cases that I've seen, they've been opportunistic, they've been lazy, they've been distant. I'm sorry, it's true. So I thought that was interesting because the system has to be starved, and if they want to commit suicide, if they want to shoot themselves in the foot, I'm fine with that, Let's not interrupt them while they're making a critical error, while the school system comes tumbling down because of their laziness and their lack of foresight, because before long, the American people are going to realize that we do not need them. We do not need these one teacher for every 17 people and untold amounts of administrators. We do not need you guys. We are much better without you in general. We are much better if you leave us alone and we are allowed to pursue our own independent livelihoods. We are much better if we are allowed to teach ourselves how to read, for instance, instead of relying on your outdated, unscientific teaching methods. So, very, very interesting story. And, alright, finally, let's get to some history here. What I want to do is give basically a biographical account of the guy who I consider to be at the center of this schooling thing, John Dewey. Because we haven't talked about him in a while, and the reason I consider him to be at the center of it is actually because, not because he orchestrated this all, there were other people that were involved in that, but because he had so many connections. He knew everyone, he was a real social butterfly over his 92 years in this world from 1859 to 1953. Real social butterfly. Knew a lot of people, wrote a ton. I think he wrote something like 15 books or something, many essays, wrote in journals, wrote articles for magazines, all this stuff. All right, so let's get into some history.
Fun. I'm sure everyone's been missing their history lessons during this summer and COVID.
Right. All right, so yeah, no notes here. Note sheet is going away. Just talking. So, like I said, John Dewey was born in 1859, which just so happens to be the same year Horace Mann, the guy who started public schooling in the United States, died. He was born in an upper-middle-class family in Burlington, Vermont, to a father who was a successful businessman, successful merchant, owned a grocery store, and a mother who was a devout, kind of fundamentalist Calvinist. She lived according to some strict Calvinist ideas. And she taught Dewey, presumably, to share those ideas, to share that Calvinism. And she probably, if we can make some inferences here, pushed it a little too hard on him. Probably pushed the Calvinism to religion stuff a little bit too hard on Dewey. So, then Dewey, at the tender age of 15, goes off to the University of Vermont, excels there. I believe he graduated second in his class in the 1870s, and then he goes over to Johns Hopkins, where he is taught by G. Stanley Hall, who had been taught in Germany by Wilhelm Wundt, and an American philosopher named Charles S. Peirce, who was a big advocate of public schooling, of a system which is going to crush all opposing opinions. So these are the people that were teaching him. We have a German-educated Hegelian philosopher and an American who believes in this austere education, which is going to crush all dissent and all unfamiliar opinions, as he called them. So these are people that teach him at Johns Hopkins. And while there, John Dewey becomes a Hegelian. He likes this German idealism, where we have the progression of history, which will eventually end in a utopia, and maybe a communist utopia if you go with Karl Marx's interpretation of this. You have pantheism. So we already have a guy here who probably is a little bit disenfranchised with religion after his mother tried to push it on him, and he's been educated by these utopians. So then, I believe in 1884, he goes over to the University of Michigan as an assistant professor, where he becomes a full-on socialist, a humanist, a materialist, a utopian, who wants to basically form this school system, which is going to change it's going to uproot the social order for this new system. And it was around this time, by the way, that the book Looking Backward was published by Edward Bellamy, which depicted a communist America in the year 2000. And then it would have been probably around if we again do some inferencing, it would have probably been around the early to mid 1890s, while at the University of Chicago, that Dewey realized what he believed was missing from this great utopian plan in order to form this perfect society. Now, what he believed was missing was a de-emphasizing of literacy, of high literacy. He believed that while you had a literate, individualistic people who were living their own independent livelihoods, you could not have this collectivist utopia that he wanted. So, in 1898, he writes this article called The Primary Education Fetish, where he says that the great issue with our system right now is this emphasis on high literacy and primary education, the emphasis of phonics instead of a holistic whole-word system, which will make people illiterate, where we have this emphasis where you have to know how to read in order to become successful in life, and we should get rid of that. We should, maybe put a lesser emphasis on it, maybe teach it a little later on in middle or high school, just not in elementary school. And then you have him starting up an experimental laboratory school at the University of Chicago in 1896, where he tries out these methods and, well, he educates lots of elitist, the sons and daughters of the great elites. And it eventually shuts down because it was a failure, but he didn't let that get in the way of his quest. Then in 1904, at the behest of a guy named James McKean Cattell, also educated in Germany, he joins Columbia Teachers College, where he also meets up with the dean, James R. Russell, also educated in Germany, and a guy named Edward L. Thorndike, a eugenicist who was educated by some people that were educated in Germany, I believe. Yeah. So we have all these German-educated people coming together at Columbia Teachers College, where they have this scheme to de-emphasize high literacy. James McKean Cattell, another professor there who I just mentioned, also wanted to get rid of phonics. He did some studies while in Germany which showed that supposedly it would be better if we taught whole word. So we have this great collection of people who all want to get rid of high literacy. in order for this fallacy. And John Dewey is the leader of them. He's the ringleader of this group. And he also, in order to do this, you're also going to need a little touch of globalism. And that comes in the form of World War I, the League of Nations, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Soviet Union, where he meets with the leaders of their education system, and he thinks it's a great experiment because they're trying out whole word. They're trying out these Pavlovian techniques where you try to drive kids insane in order to wipe them clean and then indoctrinate them into what you want them to be. And he says, I view this as a great experiment, and only for selfish reasons. I prefer seeing it tried over there first rather than in my home country, the United States of America. So, Dewey writes many books, many articles, Democracy in Education, School and Society, probably being the most famous of them. And he calls for everyone to read Edward Bellamy's book, Looking Backward, in order to see what this communist utopia without private property, without individualism, without any sense of without any emphasis on literacy, see what it could do. Read it, see the potential right there, and then eventually we will transition to it because you will all be enchanted with this book. He ranks it as the second most influential book in the last 50 years behind Marx's Das Kapital, and tries to bring it into the 20th century. And then then it happens. In the 1930s, the textbook companies stop publishing phonics books. They begin to publish whole word books like Dick and Jane. And then you have a little later on, the Dr. Seuss books, Cat in the Hat. All those books we read when we were 2 years old, where you have whole word being displayed. And then in the 1940s and 50s, the literacy rates drop hard, and they continue to drop until today, where we have very, very few people that are highly literate and a large population that is illiterate. We have an underclass, and Dewey and his progressive friends and all their insanity and all their atheism, really, because atheism was what drove them, because they needed something to believe in. Atheist utopianism, secular humanism was what drove them. They believed that this would lead to a utopia. Obviously, we are farther from a utopia than ever. I think the last few months have shown that very, very neatly. So, this was Dewey. He died in 1952. Presumably very happy man, having seen his great work all be implemented. We have the new math, and now the new math, now the new math, where no one's learning math. We have a de-emphasizing on history, on science, like Edward L. Thorndike, John Dewey's friend and colleague, said we needed, and we're not at the utopia, but Dewey thought we would be by the year 2000. Very, very ahead of schedule, but that has not materialized, and that will never materialize because utopia is impossible. But now we are stuck with his horrific legacy of crime, of drugs, all this that's come about because of his evil deeds, because of him dumbing down hundreds of millions of people, because of him turning out tens of millions of functional illiterates. We have this horrible dilemma where we have an underclass in the cities and rural areas also, which is going to plague us for years to come, which is why we need to uproot our school system if we are to survive as a nation. Alrighty. I think that's going to be about it for today. So, if you have any questions, you can email me, jbsocial@gmail.com. Please do leave a like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment if you please. Please do share the video as well. Just open a new tab, copy the link, put it to Twitter or whatever you're going to do. I'm done with my little spiel. So, until next time, I've been your host, JB.
And I've been producer Brooke.
We are signing off.